Hello and welcome to Faith Unfiltered Podcast. This is Blake Smith, Project Manager for Faith Unfiltered Podcast, and I'm excited today to introduce you to a new collaborator, and that is Jessica Pycior. Jessica has agreed to work with us and share her new podcast, Reclaim, as part of the Faith Unfiltered group. So sit back and enjoy Reclaim.
Today on Reclaim, I'm joined by Pastor Jenny Lowndes, activist, artist, yoga guru, alpha character actor, athlete, pastor, mom, and one of my favorite examples of what it looks like to live faith with your whole body. Jenny serves the Table Congregation, an experimental Community of Christ congregation that meets wherever life happens, sometimes at the temple, sometimes in parks, sometimes in the middle of real community need. Jenny also sings with Sacred Pulse, holds a master's degree in peace and social transformation, used to play professional women's football, and is one of my favorite people. Jenny, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to Reclaim.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here, glad to be had, glad to be heard, all those things.
Yeah, well, you carry a lot of titles and identities. So I'm curious, at the core of it, who is the real you? What matters to you when it really comes down to who is Jenny?
I would say real and honest self-expression. Because you asked which one's the real Jenny, I'm going to say all the above. Because each one is me leaning into a full expression of myself. Just owning the truth of who you are and staying open and curious to what that means. Because nobody knows you better than you. And if you think you've ever stopped learning and meeting yourself, then you've kind of lost the point.
That's beautiful. Okay, what experiences, inside or outside church, have most shaped the way you understand God and ministry?
That's a huge question because I've done a lot of soul searching outside of the church, which is necessary. I'm going to go ahead and say I don't care who you are, what denomination or church you grew up with and identify with. You need to find things outside of that to grow your own personal understanding. So obviously, being born and raised in the Community of Christ is like the foundation. However firm or loose that may be, I found a lot of my spiritual expression through yoga and a lot of just, Eastern understanding of spirituality and the divine. And everything that I've found and learned just really reaffirms the foundation that I already talked about, that foundation of interconnectedness, that foundation of all being worthy and all being called, whatever that call may be. You find a lot of intersection between Christianity and my yoga practice and the spirituality that presents me with.
Yeah. When you talk about that, recognizing the inner connectedness of people, is there a specific memory or moment that comes to mind when you think about experiencing that outside of church? Yeah.
That's actually really, that I would perceive that as a loaded question if I didn't have an example come right to mind immediately. So when I was doing my yoga teacher training, best 2-month class I've ever done, no offense, Community of Christ Seminary. But so it was a 200 hours, 2-month class, and there were 24 of us in this class. And, you're going through this, you're learning a lot about yourself, physically, emotionally, spiritually, alongside these people that would have otherwise been strangers. And about a month and a half in, so we probably only have about 2.5 weeks left, they said, okay, we're going to go through the yoga sequence that we've been learning together blindfolded. And so they gave us all blindfolds, and then we've got ourselves all on our individual mats. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be blindfolded for an hour now, and we're going to see how this goes. And I kept feeling the same foot kind of stepping off the mat and being like, oh, okay, recenter. And we go through the whole hour. You're a little more wobbly, you're a little less sure. I have it completely memorized. I should know exactly where I'm going, where I'm putting my body in each pose. And then at the end, we namaste and we all take our blindfolds off. And every single person in the room is turned towards the center. It didn't matter what point your mat was in the room. And like I said, the same foot kept stepping off the mat because I was gradually turning in. And the instructor said, the thing about sunflowers, they're known for following the sun. But when the sun is gone, they all turn in towards each other, towards that light. And so here I was in this room, and every single one of these people I consider an ally, a companion, a part of my who I am and my spiritual understanding and faith and development. And we all turned in. Our sun was gone. Our ability to see was gone. And unknowingly, we all turned in towards one another. To the two people in the center of the room were literally facing each other. And I mean, I don't know what can really paint a picture of interconnectedness more than that. It's like we were all literally flying blind, going off of memory, and our energy just drew us all in towards one another.
This is the first time I've felt like we need a box of tissues on this podcast.
There's one right over there. Do I need to go grab it?
I think so.
Okay. It's just because it's me. I'm a weeping willow too.
Well, we just started and I'm like, okay, Jenny. That was a beautiful story. Wow. And
I just took a class last night with my friend Robert, who I went through teacher training with. So that's every time I'm in a practice with somebody that I went through that experience with, it's that connection is just reignited.
That's beautiful. All right, I want to ask you about the table, just for a few minutes, and then we'll get into more fun stuff. For folks who've never heard of the table, how would you describe it? How is it different from what most people picture when they think or hear the word church?
Okay. So from its inception, the table has identified as an experimental community. And we consistently get to remind those who subscribe to the table, who are members of the table, who are active in the table, that this is an experiment. We're going to just try it. We're just going to try something new today. We don't always stick to the World Church Lectionary and what's going on with them. We try to stay open so we can respond to the needs of our community, to the needs of the world. A gathering on a normal Sunday will look different than it would anywhere else because we have extra elements of spiritual practice, and we're not a sit and get kind of experience. You don't have one person up front talking at you for 20 to 30 minutes. You have one person talking for 5 to 10 minutes and then posing questions based on what they said to the group, and then you get in small groups within the large group of the community to discuss those. So that way you get more perspectives on the topic and whatever needs that we're discussing. Or a lot of what we do is educational. We spent a couple of months learning or working towards being an anti-racist. We spent months on what it means to truly be an ally to the LGBTQIA plus community. So it's not just we are called, it's, okay, we've been called to these marginalized groups, to these spaces where systems have failed these people in ways that it hasn't failed us. How do we show up in that space? How do we best prepare ourselves to connect with communities that have been marginalized and support them in a way that doesn't come off as condescending or we are better than, you are less than. It's preparing this community to embrace the diversity in a way that's we are all, not you are you and me, I am me. It's we are us.
Can you tell me more about that worth of all persons as the root of your faith and how the table has put that into action in different ways? You've said a couple, the anti-racism, the becoming allies. I'm curious what other examples come to mind.
We've done some work with some interfaith education. We learned about the Sikh community because nowhere is there a more Christ-like community, if I'm being completely honest. And we visited a Sikh Gurdwara just across town that welcomed us in, scheduled a worship just for us so we could experience their culture and their faith.
What is
and then
that?
They fed us.
What is a sikh? What are you saying?
A Sikh Gurdwara.
Yeah.
So Sikh, in our culture, until we started learning about it, I had always heard it called Sikh. So the Sikh community or the Sikh community. And it's, another Eastern religion, not Christian, but their fundamental understanding of who their neighbor is. And that answer is everyone. Anyone who walks through their door, they will feed, no questions asked. They will welcome, no questions asked. You don't have to tell them who you are, where you're from, why you're there. They will welcome you and they will feed you and they will embrace you. And the Gurdwara is, and I'm probably butchering the pronunciation, is their temple, their space of worship.
Okay. Do you want to say any more about that? I made you just explain what it all was.
Yeah. So we went as a table community on what we call a risk week. So it was in place of a Sunday worship gathering. We went somewhere else to learn more about what they do and what we can learn from them, right? How we can strengthen our faith through theirs. It was just a beautiful day, and we all got head coverings, and my little J-Mo, my little son, I think he was still 2 at that time, got a little head wrap, and they were just a very loving and inclusive community to accept a bunch of weird Christians rolling up in our school bus.
That's beautiful. Were there any congregation members who were resistant or felt tension in that?
Not that was expressed. Obviously, not everybody came. I know a lot of families with younger kids were unsure because at the table, we just let our kids run loose. Kids being kids, right? It's not a seen, not heard kind of situation. It's a seen, heard, smelled, maybe tripped over, right? They're just, that's just what they're doing. And so I know in that situation, a lot of the families with younger kids were nervous. As I said, I went with my son and it was fine. They also understand that kids are kids. But as far as what they experienced, everyone had a wonderful time. And everyone left, I think, with almost more questions than they arrived with because there were so many differences as like their worship altar. And I'm using the word worship. I'm not even sure that's the word that they would use. But they have their altar and their emblems and their rituals and music. They brought in their musical performers. It was just beautiful.
I'm curious if, as a spiritual leader, if you felt like you had to do work or work up to introducing your congregation to something like that. Do you feel like through the conversations and training that you had been doing in other issues, social issues, that had been preparing them to be ready to go interact with a faith and a people unlike themselves? Yeah. And that's kind of what we do before we jump into a situation like that. We spend time learning about, what we'll be exposed to and what we'll be experiencing. And my perspective is, I don't want to risk bringing harm to another community for the sake of my community learning. So, for example, we spent 3 weeks on being an LGBTQIA+ ally, and one of the speakers that I brought in was my best friend, Krishna, and she holds religious trauma. And there's no way that I would have invited her into my community if I thought there was any way that someone there would bring her harm. Even just out of ignorance, right? Yeah. It's we spent 3 months before on really learning and embracing and listening before I felt safe inviting my best friend. Where does that sense of intention and responsibility come from? That's a really good question. Let me say it like this. What you're describing is a form of advocacy. Through faith and through spiritual formation, through how you organize with others. Why? Why does that matter? Where does that come from in you? It probably comes from being the Black girl at church camp and not having anyone advocate for me.
in those spaces, and experiencing a lot of religious trauma on my own just for being such a minority in the community of Christ. I wouldn't, what I've experienced and I am still unpacking my upbringing in this space. And I feel this place is safe and people advocate for me now that I'm bold enough to talk about it. I just don't want to set anybody else up for that kind of harm. So I guess I could say it comes from personal experience.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's healing or reclaiming something in you each time you protect that space for someone else?
Definitely. Yeah.
Not that it means you went through what you went through for a reason, but that it kind of gives it some kind of indication that it wasn't, you're doing something with it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. At the same time, I'm raising a little brown boy in this church, in this space. And if I ever heard somebody call him the black kid at church camp,
You heard it here first.
I will peace and socially transform them into...
I will be right there behind you. That's a question. It hasn't been an easy ride growing up being the token black kid in a faith community that claims diversity and promotes diversity. And I think we've headed more in that direction, but definitely throughout our childhood, you were the token black kid in the communities we grew up in. But you're actively choosing to raise your little brown boy in this space. And so what informs that? And you let him run loose at church and play, and you trust the community that he's not going to be harmed. So I'm just curious if you can tell me more about that as a mom. What informs that for you? What does that mean?
I think, honestly, part of it probably has to do with the fact that I'm in charge, in control of my community. And by that, I mean, as a pastor, it's like, I'm the closest to being in charge. I don't know. I feel like I'm creating the space for my kid. Like live and in person. I'm creating this space for my kid.
Yeah.
And there's, I think that right now, where the world is, where the country is, where the church is, that the community of Christ offers the most holistic form of Christianity that I have access to at this point. And I can't imagine raising my child outside of a spiritual space and being able to have some influence over that space also brings me some comfort.
Well, and you have religious trauma, but you want to raise your child in a spiritual space. So how is that transition? How has that come to be for you?
I think the transition is just what you said. I have religious trauma. I'm trying to raise him in a spiritual space. So my hope, my aim is that I will create this spiritual being who has a strong faith in the divine and how that interacts with him and the environment around him, without him being dependent on a religion to tell him when, where, how that should look.
But within himself.
Correct.
That's beautiful. Do you feel like you have the trust or tools that if a conflict happens, because the human condition, there's very likely like any Sunday a conflict could happen.
Emphasis on condition.
Yeah, that could affect JMO.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you have the trust and tools to navigate that?
No. If I'm being completely honest.
Yeah.
No. I have the trust and tools in myself to honor my personal needs in a conflict.
Like a mama bear mode.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I would even call that instinctual. But I don't even know what those tools would be or would look like.
Yeah, I hope you never get challenged that way. I was just curious. Like, we talk a lot about conflict resolution and being in diverse communities, but it hits different when your kid is potentially at risk.
Right.
Let alone like when different conflicts happen. Okay, we don't have to go there. Okay. How do the enduring principles show up in your actual life?
I would say quite frequently. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Yeah.
I would say unity and diversity presents itself a lot. As I kind of unite, because, you've got the church community, but then you have, my own chosen community and village. And it's an extremely, when I look at my church community, there's this much diversity. That's what, one knuckle? When I look at my chosen community, it's extremely diverse.
Yeah.
And unified in that. And, there are parents. There are not people who are choosing not to be parents. There are aunties and uncles and terms that are made up for who they are in our lives. And I'm trying to unite my own personal village through a very diverse lens.
Yeah. I think, don't we have one in here? Maybe not.
What?
I thought there was like a little map in here of the enduring principles.
Oh, probably.
That's fine. I mean, you talked about the worth of all persons earlier in the beginning of our conversation. And I think pursuing peace is something that I think has been something that you have reinvented in a really beautiful way. And so maybe you could speak to what peace means to you, and peace as it only happens in the aftermath of justice, and that conversation we've had before. I'd love if you could share some of that with our listeners.
Definitely. And that's the thing, is there is no peace unless justice is served and presented. And so, people think of peace, especially in spiritual settings, as calm, centered self. And that's not untrue, but peace goes so far beyond our personal self and well-being. And we just got off of the Advent season when we're just talking peace on earth, peace on earth, peace on earth. And that's a lot of talk with not a lot of follow through, right? They don't talk about how or what that would even look like. And so I think that really finding peace would have to happen outside of a religious setting. I'm not saying it's not spiritual, but I'm saying that religion as itself, as it tends to be created by humans, can be divisive.
Well, I hear you say walking the talk. It's not just the conversation we get inspired by together behind these walls.
Right.
But what we're going to do about it outside of them.
Precisely. It's taking what you just said and actually doing something about it. Finding out what that means in your little ecosystem. And, we're living in a society currently where our neighbors are being snatched off the street. And whether we know them or not, there is zero justice. There is zero justice being done. So there's zero peace for any of us. And until we can wrap our mind around the fact that if one person is denied their rights, we are all denied our rights. It's not just we're not on an island. No individual is on an island. One breach of justice should be felt by everyone, so we can all rise together.
I think it's Doctrine and Covenants 164A or B, in their welfare resides your welfare.
Yeah.
No one's doing well if one of us isn't.
And if you think you are, you're fooling yourself.
Yeah.
Your blinders are holding fast.
Yeah, it's the ostrich with its head in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is challenging. That's the challenge that I think we both believe that we're called to.
Right.
Not everyone interprets faith that way, which I think is another point of reclaiming, which I'd like to spend some time on, which is what Christianity may have been to younger Jenny.
Yes.
To what it has become to you now, and why Christianity has been able to continue being a vehicle for you, even though you've experienced and seen problematic tendencies or themes or harms done with it. We've talked about how anything can be used as a weapon, a tool, or a balm / healing agent. Sometimes people think I'm saying balm. And I'm saying balm, B-A-L-M.
Balm in Gilead.
But I'm curious, like the vehicle of Christianity as a root of faith for you, how have you reclaimed that and reinvented that in your life?
We've been through cycles, right? Different eras of faith understandings. And, growing up in the church, was I a Jesus freak? Thank you, DC Talk, for putting those words in my head. Like, that's who I was. I was all in on Jesus because Jesus was about love. I didn't fully understand what that meant. Because also, not put on me by my mom, I will give her this credit, but purity culture was put on me by Christianity.
Yeah.
And so, purity of body, and so no sex and no alcohol and all these things. I was real big on purity culture because I thought that's what it meant to be a good Christian. And so I thought I'm super pure. The purest of pure. I'm such a good Christian. But it was so much more than that. So I had to throw purity culture away because that is human nature. Purity culture is human perspective on what Christianity is.
What was that crossroads for you when you had to let go of purity culture?
There was more than one crossroad. Like, there were a couple of instances where I had an idea and a lens of what my role was as a Christian young woman. Going to college and hearing different perspectives as I was kind of introducing some judgment to people, being like, oh, you have sex with your boyfriend? And then, can I shout out to Nelda Kerr? Who was like, I haven't talked to her in over a decade, but for real, she was like, why would you want to commit to someone that you didn't know you were intimately compatible with? And for some reason, that never occurred. So literally just instances where I met people who were doing things differently than I was doing them, and being open to hearing why they were doing things differently than I was, for me to grow my perspective. I remember I was 25 at a lunch with my mom. My best friend was playing piano at Buca de Beppo once we were there, eating our fancy Italian food, listening to him. And I had been through a couple of heartbreaks with church guys that I thought, that's I'm going to marry my good church guy and I'm going to keep doing the good church thing. And it just kept not working. And she was like, she took a script away from me that I don't even know the society probably put in my hands, right? She was like, I don't want you to think that you need to get married and have children. She affirmed in me that I am capable of, and because she's like, she had witnessed it, me building loving, beautiful community and family anywhere I go. And she's like, you are capable of having a fulfilling life without having marriage or raising a family. And so she took a weight off of me that I didn't even realize was on there.
Yeah.
And so I could stop looking for my husband and start experiencing people and seeing what I do and do not want in a partner, so I could eventually find my recovering Catholic and turn him into a pastor's wife, I guess.
So what is being a good Christian for Jenny today?
Being a good Christian is living out Christ-like behavior. And what I mean by that is the truth of Christ, not what mainstream Christianity tells us the truth of Christ is. It is radical love and acceptance of everyone, especially the marginalized, the lost sheep. Like, people think the lost sheep is a whole sin thing, and it's not. They're lost because we exiled them, because we said they are not worthy, because we said they are less than. And it's going and finding them and not just bringing them back into a community, but making sure that the community that you're bringing them back into is safe.
Amen. That's beautiful. That's a much longer answer than just purity culture, I'll add. Like, you got a lot more complex with age.
Thank you. I like to think so.
Okay. You sing.
Yes.
You're a yoga guru. You played professional football. How has being in your body shaped your theology and spirituality?
Wow. What a good question. I mean, I would say a lot. My journey with my body has been tumultuous. I've been about this tall since I was like 10, first and foremost. When I was younger, I just always thought I'm just this big, bulky, brown person taking up all this space. Again, probably comes from the white culture I was in. I didn't meet cultural beauty norms.
Did you get adultified because you were tall so young?
I would say that, and maybe the being raised by a single parent, maybe. And I say that with the understanding that she was like, don't get a job until you like be a kid as long as you can. But yeah, not in the ways that I've heard you share, but I think that I was frequently put in leadership roles because people physically looked up to me. But as far as I didn't fully feel comfortable in my body until I really leaned into athleticism, until coaches started seeking me as they do, the big bulky kid, and be like, let me teach you how to live in your body. Let me teach you how to nurture that physically. And I went to Graceland and became a cheerleader. And then that was a whole new era for my body. And then I graduated from Graceland. I started playing football, a whole new era for my body. And then, but throughout all of that, I was consistently also doing yoga. Yoga was my body's spiritual companion to what I was putting it through workouts and physical contact in these sports. Yoga was the balm.
How you were nourishing.
Nourishing. Some would say lubricating. But I mean, it's very rare for a person to play 8 years of semi-pro tackle football as an offensive lineman without a tear of an ACL or what's this one? The Achilles.
The Achilles.
That's the lineman retirement plan right there. Is you tear your Achilles, you're out. Never happened to me because I'm pretty sure it's because I engaged. I didn't just make my body physically stronger, but through yoga, I united it with my breath, with my mind, and with my soul. So my body was a little more durable in the contact. But that also, always being an athlete, I think that that's why I connect so deeply with yoga, because it as an athlete, I've gained a lot of physical and bodily awareness. And so when I'm in yoga, it allows my crazy ADHD brain to be so focused and centered and present in my body. I just think that being a lifelong athlete has made this my spiritual practice because it is so connective.
I'm curious if that's given you another lens. Like, can you identify when someone has tension in their shoulders or is holding themselves a certain way? Like, I'm curious if you have a different lens for, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I know what you're saying because it makes me laugh. I spent a decade in the service industry. And when I tell you, like, I would see my kitchen guys, like, struggling, and I'm like, oh, your calf is tight? Well, it's your whole fascia line. And then I would get back there, and I'd start rubbing on it, and they're screaming because I'm releasing the tension. And, like, yes. The answer is I see it, and I recognize it, and I'm like, I've been there, I've healed that. Let me help you recognize that in your own skin and heal it as well.
That's beautiful. And I think that encapsulates, that captures a lot of, I think, what you've been talking about. I've healed that within myself. Let me help you heal that as well. Like, I think that is a huge, maybe, motto of yours and the thing that you embody in many ways. I'm curious, what has music, especially singing with groups like Sacred Pulse or Afterglow, when you were in college, taught you about prayer, community, and resistance? We talked a little bit how music and art can be forms of protest, of advocacy, of justice. I'm curious if you could tell our listeners what that means to you. Why is music so sacred to you?
It is. I thought you were reaching for a Kleenex. I was like, not a bad idea.
Oh boy.
What music means to me, like, music is the heartbeat of the world. And I feel confident in saying this for many reasons. And even if you can't hear it, you can feel it. A huge part of the community of Christ and our connection to our faith, I say, is our music, like our hymns and
campfire songs.
I don't know if that's just a product of our raising, that I find it so connective, or if it's just the energy of it.
The circle in yoga turning towards each other. Like there's some kind of energy that happens when we center with one another in a practice.
Mm-hmm. We create the Han Moon with our music.
K-pop reference, if you haven't seen it.
If you haven't seen K-pop Demon Hunters, stop watching this. We've already peaked.
Yeah, this isn't that important.
Get to the K-pop Demon Hunters. Yep. My voice without the lie. This is what it sounds like. Oh, spoiler alert. It's
the Han Moon.
Restore the Han Moon. And I felt it. Like when you're in groups, whether it's a concert, whether you're performing, whether you're receiving, you can feel it. And like on Sunday, we were singing This Little Light of Mine, and I watched my son sing it. And first I was like, how do you know this song? I didn't teach you this song. But second, I was just like, I'm not going to sing because I want to hear your sweet little voice sing about your light. And it's when we sing with Sacred Pulse, it's like you bring the community that gathers there, need it. And they miss it when it's not happening. And we are all filled. And it's a lot of times as ministers, when we give, that's what it is. But with music, when I'm giving my music, I'm receiving, if not more than what I'm giving. There's been many instances in my life where music heals. I just, in October, went to a women's retreat in southern Utah of women who are ex-Mormons and now identify as seekers or as Community of Christ. There are a lot of different spectrum of identities there. But something that we did, one of the women is a music therapist, and she brought books that she uses with her patients. And she played her guitar. She brought percussion instruments for people to play. And we spent hours singing secular songs, and like people just requesting a song. Hours just singing in a circle. It was powerful and healing. And it was, for them, it was reclaiming of what music can be for them. Because in the culture that they were raised in, it was also very connective. But to sing secular songs that were made for everyone and not religious songs that were just meant for them. It was just really...
Or for their husbands.
Correct.
Not all songs are meant for women.
Right. I mean, I could talk about music all day.
Yeah.
And how I feel when I am performing it, when I'm giving it. There's not much that matches it. When I'm experiencing it, when I'm receiving it.
I love you.
I love you too. I'm just like, there are hymns that I cannot sing without crying.
Yeah.
Because they remind me of my spiritual roots and my grandparents. There are songs that instantly transport you somewhere else. And I'm like, I'm going to honor where this is taking me. I'm going to sit here for a while.
Yeah. I have to ask, what does playing alphabet teach you?
Oh, so much. So much. I mean, I've felt connected to this character since I was 16. And so when my friend... So it's important to know how I got connected with this business in the first place. Storybook Forest. Look it up if you're in the KC metro area. If you have any character you've ever loved, we got it. So I was working at a ramen restaurant early in my relationship with my now husband. So this was about 9 years ago. And it was between lunch and happy hour. So nobody in the restaurant except for this woman and the two guys she was with at a table. So they were the only table I was working with. So I'm just kind of bebopping around and singing along to the music. And I go into the kitchen where obviously I'm going to belt it. This woman follows me into the kitchen and gives me her business card. And we're now really good friends. Her name's Rose. And she wanted me to be her Moana, and then she wanted me to be Tiana and be all these different characters, and it just kept not working out with my schedule, or I'm like, you still want me to play Moana? I'm in my 30s, she's 14, anyways, she's older than the new movie, so I'm a little more comfortable with it. But finally, the first Wicked movie came out, and she messaged me the next day, and she's like, so... can I finally get you as Elphaba? And I was like, say less. So, I mean, and the first time I was painted green, we just did it for a photo shoot, and I felt more beautiful. I don't know, like, than I ever have. I was like, maybe I was just meant to be green because I just look stunning. And me and my Glenda went out to around town to take pictures and everything, and kids were just like, ah, and like so happy to see us. And just the joy that they experience when they see what they perceive as real magic, and then being able to embody that for them.
Yeah.
It's powerful. And I mean, Elphaba embodies that misunderstood, striving for good, that pure of heart, but she's stuck in the lens that other people view her through. And she, through a genuine connection with the least likely person that she has to open herself up to, she has to kind of let down a wall to let Glenda in, you know, she's able to transform into who she's supposed to be. And that is someone who puts their foot down, stands up against injustice because injustice has been done to her. And you know, a huge part of her story is trying to liberate these animals who are being caged for no reason and discriminated against for no reason, and being turned into villains and scapegoated for no reason other than power of one specific person / group. And she's not here for it, because those are the only people, the only entities that stood up for her and showed her love and compassion. So obviously she's going to act on that, even at the expense of her own, what people perceive her as, at the extent of her own reputation, because she can't stand for that injustice. And that's powerful. And it doesn't matter who you are. That's an extremely hard thing to do. Extremely challenging to forfeit what you thought your dream was and your purpose was for the greater good, because you can't stand by and let evil happen while you have the power to stop it.
Amen.
And she had to find her own power and learn and cultivate it and stand up for herself and others, even though it meant losing everything.
Well, when you tell it that way, it's really a really sacred story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very relevant to
Extremely.
our context and what's going on right now.
Extremely. But when it comes to playing a character, like, that's what it means to me. But the amount of joy that I feel in that form, because these kids and these parents are just so happy to be around that character. And I love this because my family recently went to an event where there were storybook characters there. One of them was Buddy the Elf. This was at a Chief's Kids Kingdom thing. So we were just taking my son, and my mom came with us because my husband was actually DJing. Tim was DJing the event. And we're there, and we see Anna and Elsa, who we love. They came to JMO's birthday party, so JMO had to go talk to his old homies, Anna and Elsa. But then there's Buddy the Elf, and he just, you know, does his thing at my mom, and she starts weeping. Like, she starts getting emotional, and she is perplexed. She is so confused. And we spent the rest of the day unpacking why meeting Buddy the Elf brought her to tears.
Yeah.
And I'm like, think about it, Mom. Buddy the Elf embodies hope, embodies just joy and compassion and worth of all persons, because
Childlike curiosity.
Childlike curiosity and love. And I'm like, of course you're gonna feel something, because we're missing that in this world right now. And she was like, oh, I truly get why you do this, because look at how much joy this crazy old lady felt by seeing a man in tights.
That's amazing.
Just acting like Buddy the Elf.
Yeah.
So it's not just empowering and joyful for me, it's empowering and joyful for the spaces that bring me in.
Yeah. You have an academic background in peace and social transformation. How does that show up in how you lead?
I would say that it shows up because, like, in a way, I mean, we've already kind of touched on it, that the table community, we're open to learning. I think that so often in faith and religious spaces, we get bogged down by tradition, not to poo-poo tradition. Like, right, I'm here for it. I'm married. I've got my ring on the whatever finger of my left hand. Like, tradition is what it is, but we get bogged down by it, and it can prevent us from truly acting in just ways in our world and in our community. And so I would say that it shows up in the emphasis that within the table community, we are constantly in a state of discernment. We do something, we experience something, and then we debrief. Okay, so like, what are we hearing? What is moving through this community as we're experiencing this together? So we can then apply that to the next round of what we get to learn about. But it's showing up to a faith community ready to learn and then act, instead of just ready to receive, feel good, and then go home. And it's encouraging people to act outside of when we gather. Like the 5th Sunday of every month, we have what I call spiritual self-care, where we encourage people. We don't meet on those Sundays. We like have somebody over for a meal. Go on a walk in nature. Go to a yoga class. Go invite somebody to coffee that you haven't seen in a decade, right? Reconnect with someone. And that is just one way that as a community, I encourage people to not just Sunday morning.
Where do you see church struggling the most right now when it comes to justice?
The Big C Church or the Community of Christ
The Big
Church?
C. U.S. Big C. Where do you see church struggling the most right now when it comes to justice?
I see the Big C Church, Christianity in this country, getting upset about the wrong things, getting hung up on the wrong things, on the wrong concepts. The priorities are completely out of whack.
Why is that a justice issue?
That is a justice issue when you look at what it is they're getting hung up on, which is, purity culture and something that stems from purity culture is homophobia. And the things that modern Christianity is so focused on are distracting us from what modern Christianity should be working towards. So, anti-trans rhetoric, and LGBTQIA plus, and women's bodily autonomy, abortion, immigrants, all of these things have been misinterpreted by Christianity, by those in power, in order to control us, so we don't focus on, you're taking human rights away. You are denying people dignity and just practices that this country was founded on. It's distracting us from actually bringing justice to and for all. And it's distracting us from honoring the worth of all persons. If you take a woman's right to abortion away, you're taking her health care away. And for what? Because men are traditionally supposed to be in charge of it. It spirals. It all comes down to the patriarchy and white supremacy. All these things that the Big C modern Christian church are being told are important are just hurdles in the system.
Well, and I hear you naming, like, how I would break it down in one way is Jesus was all about resisting empire. And what I hear you describing is empires being idolized, godified in church
Yeah.
versus being resisted.
Oh, 100%. And they're just like putting all these words in Jesus's mouth, right? One of my favorite things to do when I see people protesting and having signs that say like God hates fags and God like and Jesus saying all these things that Jesus is about, when the Bible clearly says that Jesus is not about those things, I like to roll my window down and be like, I am so sad for you. You think you know Jesus and you don't. Like that sucks. I'm so sorry. Like you're so misunderstood. Like, and it's because I'm sad for them that they think. And we just saw it while the Buddhist monks are marching for peace and Christian pastors are out there saying, no, you need to repent like Jesus. And it's like, what? They're literally walking for peace. Jesus is walking with them, if you ask me. Jesus is walking with them. And here you are telling them to repent. The audacity. The audacity that Christianity has on what they perceive as being the word of Christ and being what peace is. And it's like, no, if peace isn't for white Anglo-Saxon males, then it's not for anyone else.
So this next question might be harder.
Lord.
The Big C church in the U.S., where do you see real hope?
Within that church?
In the context.
I would see hope within the context of that church solely on the amount of people I see fleeing it.
Say more.
The hope I see is in people not being able to drink that Kool-Aid anymore and really start to question. Now, whether or not they just say, oh, that's bad and I walk away from it, or, oh, that's bad, I need to figure out why that's not resonating and grow accordingly. You know, there are a couple of, right. Am I going to cut it off and then just shift into something else? Or am I going to cut it off and then transform?
Yeah.
And find something that really does resonate. Be like, okay, well, why didn't this make sense to me? Why, when I hear someone say that Jesus hates fags, why doesn't that really settle well in my stomach? And then,
are there specific moments or experiences that come to mind when you think about experiencing that hope alongside people or witnessing them going through that experience of reclaiming their faith or being willing to step away and question?
I have several instances where I've experienced that. But it's hard to really talk about that without, airing out somebody else's
I mean,
experience.
you said you're married to an ex-Catholic.
Yeah.
So maybe that could be safe.
Because he would expect me to talk about.
Sorry, Tim.
You have, I just have unanimous permission to air out his laundry. When I met him, he said he was atheist. Or he claimed that's what he understood his self-understanding was, because he always says, and he'll still say this, the best way to raise an atheist is to send a kid to 12 years of private Catholic school. And then at 4 months dating me, he was like, oh, I'm not atheist. I'm just not Catholic. That was his only understanding of what the Big C Christian church was. And it didn't resonate with him. He was a theater kid. So, that in theater kids, boys wearing makeup and being a little more expressive. So he was already, when he entered that world, indoctrinated away from what Catholicism had offered him at that point. But really sitting and talking with him and keeping that open dialogue as I wasn't actively working for the church at that time, but if my granny was like, hey, can you come back and sing, or can you come back and speak? I would, and he would come with me. And so he would just slowly be introduced to different kinds of Christianity, and then being with my family and seeing how we talk about Jesus and what that means and how we live that out. I'd say that was really transformative for him. And when we first started dating, like I was working in restaurants and I was bartending and I was playing football and I was this person. And then right after we get married, like immediately after we get married, I become a minister, or I'm offered my first ministerial job. And I'm like, oh no, what is my recovering Catholic, ex-atheist, how are we going to do this? And I told him that I was offered this job. And I was a little nervous. And he's like, I always knew it was going to come to this, which let me know that, yeah, he really did see me. And he really did appreciate what I brought to the discussion of faith and spirituality could mean for him. So, and I'd say he's still on that journey because we are still learning and having these discussions as we continue to experience living and working with and in and for the church. And it's a constant dialogue.
Reclaim is about taking back faith from fear, control, and exclusion. What are you personally reclaiming right now?
Can you read the intro to that again?
Yeah. Reclaim is about taking back faith from fear, control, and exclusion. What are you reclaiming right now?
I am reclaiming what it means to be a spiritual leader. Within my congregation, I've already had to redefine what it means to be a pastor, and realizing that being a pastor isn't my forever. I am reclaiming what it means to. So let me kind of start over. I've always been a minister. Anywhere I go, and my husband will attest to this. When I was a bartender, he would sit there and like see people cry as we were having discussions, as they were just laying their life in my hands, or like on public transit, like getting someone's whole life story, hugging it out afterwards, and maybe even exchanging numbers so we can follow through. Like, this has just always been who I am. And so I've been redefining what that can mean outside of a pastoral role, outside of working for a big C church, and just being a spiritual leader. I'm in the process of redefining what that can mean. And I mean, it's accompanied with a deep, resonant allyship and a need to let people know who have been harmed and traumatized by the church, have been personally victimized by a Christ that was constructed by powerful, hateful white men. Helping individuals reclaim whatever it is they need to reclaim to develop a spiritual self-worth and understanding.
Sorry, I just keep burping.
You're a gassy lassie.
I guess so.
Gassy lassie.
What would you say to someone who's in that process of deconstructing, or who loves Jesus or craves community but doesn't trust church?
I would say you don't need church. If you are craving something, don't fight that urge and seek it. Start talking to the people in your life and see where people are. They might be able to guide you towards a new understanding. They might be able to guide you towards some literature that can help. They might just look at you with some blank stares and you see their eyes glass over.
Yeah.
Then you move on to the next. I feel like if you are seeking something, just find your other sunflowers.
Yeah.
Turn in towards one another.
If you're literally searching for a place and you're here in the KC Metro, Coffee Elsewhere on the Independence Square has become an unexpected church of mine.
Amen. Me too.
I accidentally make friends on a weekly basis, just being in that space and the culture and community they foster there.
I went there and this was 2 weeks ago, or it was right before Christmas. Ugh, time's an illusion. And a man sat at the table next to us, and I was there with my best friend from high school. We were just talking, and we were talking to him. He ended up giving me this whole thing of Hot Wheel cars for my son. He's like, here's my number. And then I finally realized why he looked familiar, and he was one of my regulars when I was in the service industry forever ago. Anyways, Coffee Elsewhere.
Yeah.
Go there. They're building community. It's family
really
friendly.
Intentional.
And get a matcha.
Or an Earl Grey tea with honey and lavender. It's my go-to.
I get my matcha with the ule.
Although Drew made a homemade rosemary syrup the other day. That was really good in there too. It's just delicious.
Ooh, rosemary with Earl Grey.
And he makes those syrups, so there's no corn syrup and stuff. And
Have you had the quiche? Jana makes the quiche.
because I'm allergic to
Oh,
eggs.
the eggs.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Their bakery is so good. Yeah. They're killing it. All right. Anyways, they're not sponsoring this podcast or anything. We just
No. Yeah. Shout out.
shout out to Coffee Elsewhere.
And their cups are completely recyclable. No plastic lid.
Yeah.
Biodegradable straws.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you're not at risk of like relapsing with an addiction. Then like there's some really cool karaoke dive bars and like or just dive bars. Like you just meet the most wholesome people in unexpected ways. So if you're seeking community, don't be afraid to dip your toe in the water. It doesn't have to be inside a church.
I worked in a dive bar for 2 years, and I'm still connected with some of the regulars there because they were just needing community.
Yeah. I like
And
don't
finding
even
it and
like
creating it.
pool. And I accidentally in San Francisco ended up being in a pool like competitive league with a bunch of what had been strangers to me. Because it just came to be.
Well,
Like,
and I think a huge problem with loneliness is that adults don't know how to make friends.
yeah.
Because in school, it's built in. You're all here doing this together. And, even in college. But I'm like, as adults, people don't know how
Yeah.
to make new friends. And I'm like, join a kickball league, join a pool league. Or
Yeah.
people are like, I have to join a church. You could,
Yeah.
but you don't have to.
Hear somebody make a K-pop reference in the aisle next to you at Walmart and be like, do you know them?
You're like, we're going. Yeah, we're all doing it.
Oh, man. Okay. Being in a coven.
Go on.
And I just wrote that. I don't even know that I phrased this as a question very well. Being in a coven and being a spiritual person who values intersections of faith, how do you reconcile that? For the grandma who says, these kids can't watch Harry Potter, witchcraft is the devil's work, to this modern Christian pastor of an experimental congregation who also identifies as a coven and meets with me under full moons.
Yeah, and get our moon water. Here's the thing.
Why?
Because magic is just energy. And where we put our energy will grow and develop and transform. And so when I get together with the coven and we do our rituals, that is us together putting our energy towards something that we care about. And I mean, isn't that church? And if it's not, shouldn't it be? Just because we're doing it under a full moon around a fire? I don't know. It's magic. I don't feel like there is any rectifying or justifying of it. To me, it's our little coven is our little congregation.
Yeah.
And you can see it in Mindy coming and joining us.
Yeah.
Somebody who hasn't connected with a church in ages is very much connecting with what we offer around that fire, which is deep, meaningful conversation, setting intentions for ourselves and for the ones that we love and for each other. That's
just naturally discovering each other's giftedness and ways to invite each other into different spaces of our lives. I think there's something to be said about spaces where you can be in community and you don't have to filter yourself, or you can just, how should I say it, like be authentically yourself. Like I can cuss and be like the Midwest hick kid that I am around that campfire and be incredibly spiritually rooted and focused and driven in my, what I call my call to discipleship. And I don't have to explain those two things in spaces like that. And I think it's important to find those spaces.
Yeah.
Because then I don't need Sunday morning to be everything. I don't need it to be my only space.
right.
And I hear you naming that too. Because if the only community, the only spiritual community, the only community of authenticity or of hope you have is this one context, especially one that's rooted in tradition, and oftentimes, whether we like it or not, expectation and different personalities, that can't be the only thing.
Right. I agree completely. And if you are walking into a religious space and you put on your mask and you do your thing and you go home, you take your mask off again, what was the point? Did your mask receive? Probably not. Right. And it's then I've been letting that filter go slowly with my experimental congregation, because if you, how do I put this? My algorithm told me the other day that if they love your flowers, they better learn to love your roots, right? If they love when you are up there singing and talking about justice and love and acceptance, then they need to know where that comes from. It can come from a place of pain. Love, honor, and respect that. It can come from a place of oppression. Love, honor, and accept that. You can't just take the flowers. You have to take the experience, whether it's good, whether it's traumatic. You got to take that with it too.
Yeah, whether it makes you uncomfortable or you don't understand it.
Right.
I think my last thing, I won't say that. I've been having conversations with congregations who want to become welcoming and affirming and aren't necessarily prepared for that. And I hear concerns about, well, I want people to know they're welcome and safe here, but I don't want an over-the-top trans person coming in and influencing my grandkids. And these are real conversations that I'm having and hearing. I'm curious from this end of the spectrum, because that's one of the blessings and curses of Community of Christ, is all are welcome. And so you experience all sides and intersections of the spectrum of politics and faith and opinions. And I'm curious how you would address that.
So I would address that by saying, no, you're not ready.
Yeah.
You can't create a safe space for someone if you think that someone's mere existence is in your face. If someone expressing their truth, who they were created to be, if that is disturbing to you, then you are not a safe space for anyone who is experiencing that.
Well, I just don't know why they have to be so over the top and in my face about it.
Define over the top and in your face is what I'm saying. Like, do you think anything is over the top and in your face? Anything that isn't what you're used to? Anything that you haven't already been exposed to?
Yeah.
Because a phrase like over the top and in your face is way too vague to be justified.
It's so subjective.
Exactly.
I mean, it makes me think about, like, I remember in high school, we had a new student who had been homeschooled, and she got really emotional and cried because she saw my friend for the first time, and he's Black, and she had never seen a Black person before. She'd never seen a person of color, and she just started crying. It, like, shocked her. And luckily, Tyree's, like, a really chill person and was, like, engaged and met her there. And, like, asked questions and didn't, like, take it negatively, which who knows, it could have been. But to her, that could have been over the top and in your face. The only thing she could see in the room because she had never seen it before. And it almost makes me wonder if we're invited to reclaim and be curious about those things. Mm-hmm. The thing in the room that makes us uncomfortable or that keeps yelling at us that we can't ignore.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the challenge.
Yeah.
And not something that needs to be corrected.
It's being comfortable with that challenge and acknowledging it when it's happening.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, if people are having these questions, saying we want to be welcoming, affirming, but send them to me.
Yeah.
Because that filter is gone.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's what we talked about earlier. I don't want to bring my friend to this space knowing that it's going to harm them. Right. Or the tools and spaces and attention aren't going to be in place to catch them. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know that we can control that conflict will never happen. But we can control that if someone stands up behind a pulpit and praises Charlie Kirk and says he deserves sainthood, that actually happened.
Sorry, I didn't know I had a gag reflex until just then. 38 years in. Who knew?
But that if that happens, that we're prepared to stand up in solidarity and leave with the queer person who's hurt by that, or hold space for them, or whatever it is, versus everyone sitting there not knowing what to do and just that person leaving. I think we figure out how to hold spaces for that.
Mm-hmm. As someone who has had people walk out of my sermons many times because I'm advocating for the LGBTQIA plus community, not within my congregation. They know what they signed up for. I can attest to, I wish that instead of them standing up and walking out, that they would stand up and maybe stand in the back so we could talk afterwards.
Or stand up and just ask a question right then.
Right.
Like, I'd rather that.
Come at me with your questions.
Interrupt me.
Clearly, you're not jiving with what I'm saying, and we need to figure out, maybe this could be a growth opportunity instead of a I'm out kind of opportunity.
Yeah. Well, maybe if the instinct is, you don't need to say this in church, stand up and ask, why are you saying this in church? Ask me.
Yeah.
Let's try to understand each other more.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay.
Send them to me. My mask, that filter is gone.
We're going to wrap it up with a last question.
Uh-oh.
If someone who has open wounds is searching for a spiritual community and faith is important to them, they need somewhere to stay rooted, but they have open wounds, what would you say to them?
Well, first I would spend time to understand what those wounds are, if they're comfortable with sharing, because that could directly affect the answer. What is that woundedness? Where did it come from? How are you living with it now? How is it holding you? But I think that I would advise them to protect their peace while leading with curiosity and not settling for whatever is not right for them. I think oftentimes we feel like forced into a situation where it's like, well, I was only kind of offended by this. Everything else is good. And so then you just kind of roll over and accept it. But I would tell them not to settle. Their soul deserves better. But again, to lead with curiosity and know that as individuals, we are 100% capable of building sacred community wherever we go. And so if you're not finding it in a building, create it somewhere else.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm going to ask one last question.
Whoa! You said the last one was the last question.
I know, I lied.
What?
But this is your last year in this role as pastor, right?
Yes.
So what's next?
Ooh, I have no idea. And I'm pumped about it.
Amen. Thank you all for joining us today on this episode of Reclaim Podcast with Pastor Jenny Lowndes. Thanks, Jenny. Love you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. And go to Coffee Elsewhere. Fully sponsored.
They are not sponsoring us.